Flames chewed through the cheap drop ceiling like it was paper. The whole laundromat glowed orange washers humming uselessly as smoke rolled along the tiled floor. I could barely see my own hands. Somewhere behind the last row of dryers, a child coughed a thin, panicked sound, swallowed by the roar of the fire. "Evan, don't!" someone screamed behind me. But I was already moving one arm over my mouth, the other stretched out in front of me, feeling my way through the heat. The exit sign flickered and died, plunging the back half of the building into a choking half-dark. A metal shelf crashed to the floor. Then a girl's voice, hoarse and terrified. "He's stuck. Please, somebody help him." For one split second, I thought of my daughter, of that hospital room 3 years ago, of all the times I couldn't fix the worst thing that ever happened to us. Not this time. Not this kid. I dropped to my knees, crawled into the thickest part of the smoke, and reached for the sound. Before I go any further, tell me where you're listening from tonight, and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe courage still matters in this world. My name is Evan Marshall. I was 41 the year my life burned down for the second time. By day, I owned a tired little 24-hour laundromat on the edge of Springfield, Missouri. By night, I did whatever side work I could get, fixing water heaters, patching roofs, unclogging drains, anything that kept the lights on, and my daughter's lunchbox full. It wasn't always like that. Before the accident, I'd been a maintenance supervisor at the community college. Steady paycheck, health insurance, a wife who laughed in the kitchen, and a little girl who believed I could fix anything with a wrench and some duct tape. Then a drunk driver ran a red light one rainy Tuesday, and my wife Jenny never came home. The lawsuit dragged on. The insurance fight dragged longer. Grief hollowed me out from the inside, and the late notices piled up on the table where we used to eat pancakes. When the college cut staff, I was one of the first to go. The laundromat was a last-chance gamble, bought cheap from a man who wanted out and didn't care who took over. The machines were old, the sign buzzed. The neighborhood had more boarded-up windows than open ones. But it was mine. A key on my own ring. A place where my daughter Hannah could do homework at the little table by the front window while I fixed leaky hoses and emptied coin boxes. Most nights it was just us, the hum of the dryers, and the soft drone of the local radio station in the background. I swept floors, wiped lint from the traps, and tried not to think too hard about the bills I couldn't pay yet. I told myself if I just kept going, if I just kept fixing things, somehow one day, our life would feel like more than survival. The first time I saw them, it was close to midnight on a Tuesday. The place should have been empty, last load signs already flipped, parking lot mostly dark. I'd gone to the back to check a stubborn dryer that kept tripping the breaker. When I pushed open the supply closet door, expecting mops and detergent boxes, I found a thin mattress on the floor, a small backpack, and a pair of worn sneakers lined up carefully against the wall. And in the far corner, a teenage girl and a little boy stared back at me, eyes wide and scared like two deer caught in the beam of my flashlight. That was the moment everything shifted. I had to decide if they were just trespassers in my struggling business, or a chance for all of us at something different. I found my voice before they found theirs. "Hey," I said gently, keeping my hands visible, palms open. "You two okay?" The girl pulled the boy closer, her shoulders stiff even in the dimness. She couldn't have been more than 16. The boy, maybe 8. He had a cough, dry, hard, like he was forcing it down so he wouldn't draw attention. "We'll go," the girl whispered. "Please, just give us a minute." I should have told them to leave. Every business rule, every lousy city ordinance, every warning from the landlord about keeping vagrants out should have had me shoving them to the curb. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Let's get some air first," I said, stepping aside. They hesitated, but the boy tugged her sleeve. They slipped past me and out into the cool, empty parking lot. The neon Laundromat sign buzzed overhead, flickering in a way that made the night feel even more hollow. I followed at a safe distance, not wanting to spook them. They stood by the picnic table I'd repainted last spring, the girl's thin jacket fluttering in the wind. "I'm Evan," I said. "What's your name?" The girl swallowed. "Kaylee. And this is my brother Micah." Micah wiped his nose with the back of his hand, eyes avoiding mine. "You too hungry?" I asked gently. Kaylee's face tightened. Embarrassment, fear, pride, all tangled into one expression. "We're fine." They weren't fine. But I knew better than to push. And maybe that's why I didn't hear the car until the headlights swept over us like a sudden interrogation beam. A black sedan rolled in too fast for a near-empty lot. It came to a stop crookedly across two spots, engine rumbling with a low growl. The door flew open, and out stepped my landlord Brent Hargrove, pressed slacks, leather jacket, and the permanent smirk of a man convinced the world owed him something. "Great. What the hell is this?" he barked, marching toward us. "Evan, I warned you about letting people hang out around here." Kaylee tensed, one arm wrapping around her brother. The boy shrank behind her. "They're not..." I started. Brent jabbed a finger at me. "I don't care. You want to run this place like a halfway house, fine. But not on my property." He turned to the kids. "You two move along, now." Micah flinched. Kaylee lifted her chin, trembling but defiant. "They weren't doing anything wrong," I said. Brent rounded on me. "I'm not talking about wrong. I'm talking about liability. I'm talking about the fact that you're already behind on rent. And this," he waved an arm at the children, "is exactly why I don't trust you." The words landed like sharp gravel in my chest. "Behind on rent," said loudly enough for the whole street to hear. He wanted it to sting. Hannah's face flashed through my mind, her quiet questions at night. "Dad, are we gonna have to move again?" "No, sweetheart. We're okay." I hated that promise more every day. "Brent," I said, lowering my voice, "don't do this in front of them." "Don't do what?" "Tell the truth." He laughed, the mean kind that made your stomach twist. "This place is falling apart, Evan. Everyone knows it. The machines break weekly, the neighborhood's going downhill, and you're sinking money into the Titanic." The kids said nothing. They didn't move. They just stood there, two shadows with nowhere left to go. Brent spat on the pavement. "Get them out of here or I will." My fists curled without my permission. For a heartbeat, I pictured grabbing him by the collar and dragging that smug look off his face. But then, I saw Micah's terrified eyes. Hannah's warm bed at home, the laundromat's keys in my pocket, the thin thread holding our life together. I forced my hands to unclench. "I'll handle it," I said. "You'd better," Brent grunted, turning back toward his car. "One wrong move and I'm terminating your lease." He drove off without another word, tires squealing across the asphalt. The sound echoed long after the sedan disappeared. Kaylee hugged her arms around herself. "We're used to being yelled at," she murmured. "You don't have to stick up for us." "I didn't do it for show," I answered. "Come inside. It's warmer there." She hesitated again, but this time she nodded. Inside, the buzz of the fluorescents felt too bright, too harsh. I let them sit at the folding table by the window. I grabbed 2 bottles of water from the break fridge, slid them across. Micah opened his immediately and drank fast, like he was afraid someone might take it back. "Thank you," Kaylee said softly, eyes lowered. "But we won't stay. We know we can't." "Where are you going to go?" I asked. No answer. "Where are your parents?" Kaylee's mouth tightened. "Not here." I didn't push. I'd seen enough people carrying invisible bruises to recognize when answers were locked behind them. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. The laundromat felt suddenly too small, too fragile. "You both can sit here until you catch your breath," I said. "After that, we'll figure something out." She looked up. Something flickered across her face. Relief, fear, hope. They all looked the same in kids asked to survive things they never should have faced. Hannah would be asleep at home by now, probably drooling on the stuffed dog she'd had since she was 4. She depended on me to make choices that didn't break our life any further. Choices that kept us safe. So why did it feel wrong, deeply wrong, to send these two back into the night? But the world doesn't pause for moral dilemmas. The next storm rolled in the very next morning. By 9, the laundromat was bustling weekend rush car seats, college kids, oil-stained mechanic uniforms. I was fixing the coin dispenser when I heard raised voices near the folding station. A middle-aged woman in a knitted blue cardigan was glaring down at Kaylee, who was loading a washer with the quiet efficiency of someone trying to be invisible. "Don't you dare drip that filthy stuff near my things," the woman snapped. "This place has standards." Kaylee froze. Micah looked up from the coloring book I'd found in the lost and found drawer. "Ma'am," I said, stepping over, "they're fine. They're customers like anyone else." "Customers?" She snorted. "I saw them come with you this morning. You letting people live here now. No wonder this place looks the way it does." A few others glanced over. One man smirked. A couple whispered. Kaylee's cheeks flushed red. Micah tucked further into his hoodie. I steadied my breath. "We treat everyone the same here," I said calmly. "Well, maybe that's the problem," the woman snapped. "This used to be a decent business before you bought it." The words were familiar. Brent's tone. Brent's poison, but coming from a stranger, they hit deeper. Kaylee's hands trembled as she tried to close the washer. The lid slipped from her fingers and clanged loudly. The woman recoiled. "Oh, for heaven's sake. This is exactly what happens when you let strays in. They don't know how to act." Micah's voice cracked. "We're not." "Hush," Kaylee whispered, eyes glossing with humiliation. A heat rose in my chest, anger, shame, exhaustion, all merging into a slow boil. "That's enough," I said more sharply than I intended. The woman straightened. "Or what? You'll kick me out, I pay for my loads." "They don't." And just like that, every eye in the laundromat swung toward us. Kaylee stared at the floor. Micah's lower lip trembled, and somewhere deep inside me something old and heavy shifted. I forced my voice to steady. "Ma'am, please finish your laundry, but you will not harass them again." She scoffed, turning away, but the damage was already done. Conversations restarted with uneasy murmurs. A few glances lingered on me, on the man who couldn't run a business, couldn't keep order, couldn't even keep trouble out. I knelt beside Micah. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, but his throat worked like he was swallowing something sharp. Kaylee met my eyes. "We'll leave after this load," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "You don't have to run every time someone's cruel." But she shook her head. "You don't get it. People like us, we're always one mistake away from losing the little kindness we find." Her voice cracked. "We can't be the reason you get in trouble." I wanted to argue, but Brent's threat still echoed in my skull. "Terminating your lease. One wrong move." I looked around my own business. The dented dryers, the cracked tiles, the fading posters on the wall, and felt the weight of how much I could still lose. How much Hannah depended on stability I could barely hold together. The pressure in my chest tightened like a vice. Outside clouds rolled in dark, low, heavy. Storm weather. Kaylee gathered her things. Micah slipped his small hand into hers, and I stood there behind the counter watching two kids prepare to walk back into a world that had no patience for them. Something was going to break. I just didn't know yet if it would be them or me or everything holding our fragile little lives together. But the next moment, the one that would force the truth out was already on its way. The storm rolled in faster than anyone expected. By late afternoon, the sky over Springfield had turned the color of bruised steel. Sheets of rain hammered the glass storefront, flashing white under the flickering neon sign. I'd just finished mopping near the dryers when my phone buzzed an alert about flash flooding near the river, maybe half a mile from the laundromat. A second alert hit before I could pocket the phone. Severe tornado warning. Seek shelter immediately. My stomach dropped. The laundromat groaned under a sudden blast of wind, the metal frame rattling like a tin can. Customers looked up startled. I hurried to the front. "All right, folks," I called out, forcing my voice steady. "Let's move to the back hallway. No windows there. We'll be safer." Chairs screeched. People shuffled. Machines hummed on like nothing was happening. I counted heads, then froze. Micah and Kaylee were gone. They'd left 10 minutes before, after folding the last of their things and avoiding everyone's eyes. I had offered them a ride. They'd refused with polite, brittle smiles. Now a tornado warning was screaming across my phone, and those two kids were out there somewhere on foot. No umbrellas, no shelter. I grabbed my jacket. "Stay put," I said to the crowd. "I'll be right back." A woman called after me. "You can't go out there. Are you insane?" Maybe I was. But I had already pushed through the doors into the storm. Rain stabbed sideways, sharp and cold, plastering my shirt to my skin. The wind howled so violently it bent the streetlights, sending sparks skittering. Leaves, debris, and loose trash whipped across the pavement. I cupped my hands around my mouth. Kaylee, Micah. The wind drowned everything. Lightning carved a jagged line through the sky, lighting the neighborhood for a split second. I saw an overturned shopping cart rolling down the sidewalk like it was alive. Then I heard it faint somewhere near the old underpass that dipped toward the creek. A cry. High and panicked. I ran. Not the careful jog of a man trying to stay dry, but the sprint of someone who knows too well what it feels like to lose the person you love most and refuses to ever feel that way again. The underpass ahead was flooding fast brown water swirling across the asphalt, rising over the curb. The creek beside it had spilled over, turning the whole low stretch into a dangerous churning pool. And there, halfway down the slope, was Micah. He was clinging to a street sign pole, water up to his chest, the current ripping at him like invisible hands. His little fingers slipped, caught, slipped again. Pure terror carved his face. "Micah!" I yelled, sliding toward him. Kaylee stood at the top of the slope, rain pelting her so hard she could barely stay upright. "He fell," she screamed. He slipped. "I can't reach him." Another lightning flash illuminated everything in brutal clarity. The water was rising, fast. My boots skidded. The concrete was slick as ice. Rain blinded me. Every instinct screamed to stop. But behind that fear came the memory Jenny's face the day I lost her. The sound of doctors saying we did everything we could. The hollow space inside me where her laugh used to live. I would not lose another life to helplessness. "Micah!" I shouted. "Hold on. I can't," he cried, voice cracking as his hands slid another inch. I dropped to my knees and crawled, using my weight to anchor myself. The floodwater surged around me, pushing hard enough to steal breath. My palms scraped against the rough concrete. "Evan, don't," Kaylee sobbed. Please don't. But I kept going. I wasn't thinking about risk, or the laundromat, or Brent's threats, or the rent I still didn't have. All I saw was a terrified boy moments from being pulled into a storm drain that would swallow him whole. When I reached him, the water was nearly at his chin. His lips were blue. "Grab my arm!" I yelled. He shook his head violently. "I can't let go. The water'll take me." I leaned in closer, anchoring one arm around the metal railing. "Micah, look at me." His eyes darted to mine. "I won't let you go, I promise you, but you have to trust me." He was trembling, cold-soaked, panicked. The current dragged at him like a living thing. Any adult would have been terrified. A child had no chance. "I can't," he sobbed again. "You can," I said. "And I'm right here." I reached out, stretching until my shoulder screamed. My fingers brushed his wrist. "Micah." "Now." He let go of the pole. In that split second, the water seized him. His small body whipped sideways, but my hand closed around his arm with bone-deep instinct. The current nearly tore him from me. Pain lanced through my shoulder as his weight yanked my muscles to the edge of snapping. "Hold on," I grunted through clenched teeth. I dug my boots against the concrete, slipping, sliding, but refusing to give an inch. Inch by inch, I dragged him up water, slamming into both of us. Kaylee was screaming, voice raw and terrified. Lightning shattered the sky. Finally, we reached the top of the slope. I pulled Micah onto the grassy patch, collapsing beside him. He coughed violently, choking up creek water, gasping for breath. Kaylee threw herself around him, sobbing into his shoulder. He clung to her with the last of his strength. I sat back, chest-heaving, water running off me in rivers. My whole body trembled. But he was alive. Alive. Horns blared from the street behind us, several cars stopping at once. A truck door slammed. Then another. I heard footsteps pounding toward us through the rain. Holy hell, Evan. I wiped water from my eyes and found myself staring up at a man holding an umbrella, wearing a jacket embroidered with the city logo. It was Officer Daniels, someone who did laundry at my place twice a week. Behind him were two paramedics pulling a stretcher through the mud. "Did you pull that kid out of the flood?" Daniels shouted over the storm. I nodded, chest still burning from the effort. One of the paramedics crouched beside Micah. "He's hypothermic. Let's get him warmed up." Kaylee held his hand tightly, refusing to let go. More headlights lined the road. More people got out. And standing among them, arms crossed, jaw slack, was Brent Hargrove. He stared at me like he couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. His eyes tracked the soaked mud on my clothes, the cuts on my hands, the trembling in my limbs. And then he looked at Micah, being lifted onto the stretcher. "He went into that water," Brent muttered. Officer Daniels answered before I could. If he hadn't, that boy would have been sucked straight into the storm drain. No one else could have reached him in time. Brent's expression flickered something like shock, maybe even respect, but he said nothing. I didn't care. All I cared about was the boy gripping my wrist as the paramedics lifted him. His voice was faint, exhausted. "Thank you, Mr. Evan." My throat tightened in a way I couldn't hide. "You're safe now, buddy." Kaylee hugged me suddenly, arms shaking. "You saved him," she whispered. "You saved my brother." Her tears mixed with the rain on my jacket. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't used to being a hero in anyone's story. But then something else happened. Something I didn't expect. People who had been strangers minutes earlier, neighbors, drivers, even a couple who'd been folding laundry when I ran out, gathered around us. One man shook his head in disbelief. "That guy owns the laundromat on 5th, he said. "I've seen him fix people's car batteries for free. Didn't know he had this in him." Another voice. We need more men like him in this town." The words fell over me like the warm glow of a fire after a long winter. Not praise, not glory, just acknowledgement. Something I hadn't felt in years. As the paramedics prepared to load Micah into the ambulance, Officer Daniels clapped my shoulder. "Ride with them," he said. "The kid won't calm down unless you're there." Kaylee nodded, wiping her eyes. "Please. He trusts you." For once, I didn't question whether I belonged. I climbed into the ambulance beside Micah, holding his hand until his breathing slowed. And as the doors closed and the sirens wailed us forward through the flooded street, I realized something. Everything had changed. Not just for those kids, not just for the people who witnessed it, but for me. I had stepped into the flood without thinking. I had fought for life the way I wished someone could have fought for mine years ago. And the whole town had seen it. As the ambulance pulled away, lights reflecting off the rising water, one truth settled deep into my bones. The quiet man who fixed machines in a dying laundromat was not invisible anymore. The storm broke sometime after dawn, but the world still felt wrung out. Streets slick, trees bent the sky, hanging low like a tired animal. By the time the ambulance parked outside Mercy General, the worst of the danger had passed. Inside, though, the aftermath was raw and humming. Nurses rushed Micah to a heated bed, wrapping him in warm blankets, while Kaylee hovered close, her hands, restless eyes darting between every monitor. I stayed near the doorway until a nurse waved me in, and only then did the boy's breathing finally ease. Each inhale steadier than the last. "You stayed," he whispered. "I told you I would," I said. His small fingers curled weakly around mine. Trust fragile, but real. Outside the room, voices murmured familiar ones. I stepped into the hallway and saw the cluster of people who had followed the ambulance to the hospital. Officer Daniels, the couple from the laundromat, 2 neighbors who recognized me from the flood cleanup last year, and standing stiffly with his hands shoved too deep into his pockets, Brent Hargrove. They all fell silent when they saw me. For a long second, no one spoke. Just the beeping of monitors, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, and the weight of something unspoken hanging in the air. Daniels broke it first. "Kid's gonna be okay," he said. "Docs say you pulled him out just in time." A murmur rippled through the group relief disbelief, but Brent's stare didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. "How the hell did you do that?" he asked. I blinked. "Do what get through that water," he said. "I've seen grown men freeze by that underpass. And the current..." He shook his head. "That should have swept you both under." He sounded suspicious, but beneath it was something else, confusion, maybe even insecurity. I looked past him to the window where rain still streaked down the glass. "I just did what needed doing," I said. But Brent didn't drop it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Where'd you learn to move like that? Move like that?" The words flicked something in me. Something old, buried deep under 3 years of grief and trying to stay afloat. Something I had worked hard to keep quiet. And the hallway suddenly felt too small. Before I could answer, a nurse poked her head out. "Kaylee," she said. "Your brother's asking for you." The girl slipped past us, giving me a shaky smile as she went. When she was gone, I turned to head back into the room, but Daniels stepped forward. "Evan," he said gently, "you saved that boy's life. But Brent's right, what you did wasn't normal. Not for someone without training. It wasn't judgment. It wasn't suspicion. It was curiosity from a man who had seen too much and knew what real courage looked like." I let out a slow breath, wiping a damp hand over my face. My clothes were still stiff from dried mud, dried fear. The storm clung to me even in the warm hallway. There was a time, I said quietly, when emergencies were my world. A silence settled over us. I hadn't planned to say more. But something about standing there, hearing Micah behind the door, knowing how close he'd come to being another memory I couldn't fix, shook loose pieces of my past I'd kept locked down. I wasn't always running a laundromat, I said. Before Jenny died, before everything fell apart, I was part of the county's search and rescue team. 12 years. Several heads lifted. Daniel straightened. You were SR. I nodded. High water rescues, wildfire evacuations, lost hikers, car rollovers in the woods. I was the guy who went in when others couldn't. But you never said anything, the woman from the laundromat whispered. I shrugged lightly. People struggle enough as it is. Nobody needs a sad story stapled to their load of laundry. Another silence, this one heavier. And then Brent, arms still folded, finally found words. You let me talk to you the way I did, he said slowly. Knowing who you were, knowing what you were capable of. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried shame threaded through every syllable. I wasn't trying to hide anything, I replied. I just didn't see a reason to tell the world who I used to be when I couldn't even afford to be that person anymore. Something in Brent's face cracked, something brittle and defensive. He ran a hand over his jaw, suddenly looking older, smaller. I misjudged you, he said, the words like gravel scraping out of his throat. Plain and simple. I didn't rescue him from the discomfort. A nurse walked by, pushing a cart, humming softly. The hallway returned to its quiet hum. Then Daniel spoke again. Evan, he said, stepping forward, you ever think about going back to SAR? I exhaled. Not after Jenny. Not after failing to save the person I loved most. Daniel shook his head. What you did out there, anyone else would have gone under. You didn't. That's not luck. That's training and instinct. His voice softened. That boy's alive because of you. I swallowed hard, throat tight. I'm just glad I got to him, I murmured. Don't sell yourself short, he said. This town needs people like you. The comment hung there heavier than he meant it to. The couple behind him nodded. Even the neighbor, someone I'd seen dozens of times but never really spoken to, looked at me like I'd stepped out of the shadows. People who barely noticed me yesterday were now seeing something they hadn't before. Respect. Recognition. Human gratitude. And something else too, a quiet invitation. A door opening, the kind you don't always get twice. Before anyone could say more, the doctor emerged from Micah's room. He's stable now, she said. Still cold, but warming up well. Another hour or so and he should be fully out of danger. Kaylee peeked out behind her eyes, swollen but bright. Can he see Evan for a minute? The doctor nodded. Short visit, he's tired. I stepped inside and the room dimmed behind me. Machines beeped steadily. Warm blankets cocooned the small boy. When he saw me, he managed a weak smile. You came back, he whispered. I always will, I said, pulling a chair close. You jumped into the water. His voice trembled, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. You didn't even think about it. I smiled slightly. Sometimes you don't think, you just act. Why? He asked softly. I hesitated. The truth pressed at my throat. Because once I whispered I couldn't save someone I loved. And I promised myself I'd never let fear freeze me again. Micah blinked slowly, tired, but understanding more than most adults would. Kaylee stepped closer, clutching the blanket. You saved my family, she said. We won't forget that. I nodded, unable to speak. A nurse tapped the door. Just a minute left, she said gently. Outside, the group had thinned, but Brent still waited. He leaned against the wall, wringing water from his jacket sleeve. When I stepped out, he straightened, meeting my eyes. "I owe you an apology," he said, direct, unpolished, true. "I treated you like you were nothing but a failing business owner dragging my property down." He paused, swallowing. "But today, I saw the kind of man you are, and I was wrong." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. "Your lease," he said. "I'm rewriting it. Lower rate for the next 6 months. No penalties, no threats." I stared at him. "Why?" He shrugged awkwardly. "Because men who run into floods to save kids deserve a little breathing room. And because this town needs you more than it needs another empty storefront." He held the paper out. I didn't take it right away. Part of me didn't trust it. Part of me didn't trust him. But another part, the part that had spent too long holding everything together with duct tape and late nights, felt something loosen in my chest. Not much. Just enough. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded once and walked away, not waiting for more. The hallway emptied, the storm light faded, and for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a locked door. It felt like a choice. That evening, as I stepped out of the hospital and the wind settling into a soft, cool breeze, my phone buzzed again. Daniels had texted, "Call me tomorrow. I've got something you might want to hear." I stared at the message. A new opportunity, a new direction, a new version of my life tugging at the edges. Behind me, the hospital entrance glowed warm against the fading storm. Ahead of me, the quiet street waited, wet pavement, reflecting the dim streetlights, the world holding its breath, as if asking whether I was ready to step back into who I once was. Or perhaps become someone new entirely. I stood there for a long moment, feeling the shift inside me, small, steady, impossible to ignore. Something was coming next. And this time, I wouldn't hide from it. The morning after the storm felt strangely calm, like the whole town had taken one deep breath and held it through the night. When I unlocked the laundromat, there were already 3 people waiting outside, not for laundry, but for me. Mrs. Ivers, the woman who'd snapped at Kaylee the day before, stepped forward first. She clutched a paper bag like it was a peace offering. "I owe you an apology," she said, voice trembling just a bit. "I judged those kids. And you, I'm ashamed of it." She held the bag out. "I made biscuits. Fresh. Please, give some to them too." The change in her tone, the humility, the sincerity softened something in me. I nodded, and she looked relieved enough to cry. Others followed. A retired mechanic who'd watched the rescue asked if I needed help repairing the dryers. A young mother asked whether her church could donate warm clothing for the kids. People dropped off towels, blankets, even hot meals. Word had spread quickly through town, faster than I could have expected. By noon, the front counter looked like a donation drive. But the biggest shift came when Officer Daniels stopped by. He surveyed the crowd, the repairs already underway. The kids now showered, fed, wrapped in borrowed hoodies, helping unload crates from a pickup outside. "You did something yesterday, Evan," he said quietly. "People saw it. People needed it." Before I could reply, he handed me a folded piece of paper, official lettering across the top. "County Search and Rescue is reopening applications," he said. "We've been understaffed for years. You have the experience, the instincts, and frankly, the heart for it. The team wants you back." I stared at the paper, a mixture of warmth and ache rising in my chest. I hadn't stepped into that world since the day I lost Jenny. I'd convinced myself those doors were closed forever. But yesterday proved something I hadn't allowed myself to believe. The part of me that once rushed toward danger wasn't dead. It was waiting. "You don't have to answer today," Daniel said, "but the offer's real." Behind him, Kaylee watched me with quiet hope. Micah waved from a folding table, still pale but smiling wide. Hannah would be getting out of school soon, eager to help distribute the donations she'd insisted on organizing. Maybe the world hadn't broken me after all. Maybe it had simply rerouted me. I didn't give Daniels an answer then, but he seemed to read the direction of my heart. He gave my shoulder one firm pat before heading back toward his cruiser. The rest of that week unfolded gently. Brent came by with paperwork for the new lease fare, respectful better than I'd dreamed. He didn't make excuses for the past. He simply offered his hand. "I thought you were sinking," he said. "Didn't realize you were holding half this town together." He walked the laundromat floor with me afterward, helping patch a damaged ceiling tile and ordering a new outdoor sign he insisted on paying for. A quieter man left that afternoon, humbled enough to see the world differently. As for Kaylee and Micah, social services got involved, but in the rare way that didn't tear lives apart. Daniels vouched for them. So did 3 neighbors I barely knew. And when the caseworker asked me privately if the kids had somewhere safe to stay while details were sorted, I heard my own voice answer before my mind did. "They can stay with me and my daughter, as long as they need." The caseworker blinked, surprised. But she didn't challenge it. Something about the storm had shifted the whole town's axis. Weeks turned into months. Summer arrived warm and bright, and with it came the biggest transformation of all. The laundromat, once a tired little building with buzzing lights, became a community anchor. With volunteer help, we painted the walls, added shelves of donated books, and toys hung a bulletin board where people posted odd jobs and meal trains. And by late June, I'd given Daniels my answer. 2 evenings a week and 1 weekend a month, I strapped my old SAR badge to a fresh uniform and trained with the team again. Not because I wanted to rewind time or pretend loss hadn't shaped me, but because purpose had a way of pulling you back toward the light. The kids thrived too. Micah's cough disappeared. He joined a junior soccer team. Kaylee caught up on schoolwork and began taking community college classes at night. Their laughter in the laundromat became a sound I didn't know I was starving for. And one quiet Sunday morning, as we all folded towels together, me, Hannah, Kaylee, Micah, it hit me with a gentle clarity. Family doesn't always arrive through blood. Sometimes it walks into your life, soaked from a storm, shivering scared, and gives you the chance to choose it. I still keep the worn rubber bracelet Jenny gave me on my keys. I still miss her every day. But grief no longer crowds out the rest of my life. It sits beside joy now, like 2 old friends learning to share space. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the brick row of shops, Kaylee asked, "Why'd you come after us that night? You didn't owe us anything." I thought of the floodwater, the fear, the moment Micah's hand nearly slipped away. "I don't think anyone gets through this world alone," I told her. "And sometimes the people we're meant to help, they're the ones who help us back." She nodded, blinking away emotion she didn't need to explain. The laundromat lights hummed softly. Hannah switched the sign to closed. Micah chased soap bubbles left over from a prank he insisted wasn't his. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle inside me, not the heaviness of survival, but the warmth of belonging. Life doesn't hand out perfect moments, but every now and then, it lets us rebuild ourselves from the pieces we thought were gone. And if you're lucky, you end up standing in a place you never expected, holding the hands of the people who helped you find your way back.